The richest king who ever lived had a secret: Solomon. The name evokes wisdom, wealth, Jerusalem's golden temple. But beneath the image of glory, there is a story that most people have never heard complete. A harem of 1,000 women that was actually a network of alliances covering the known world. A visit from a queen who came from far away and left in Jerusalem a son who changed the destiny of a continent. And a sacred object that disappeared from Jerusalem 2,600 years ago, and that a 3,000-year tradition says is kept by a single man in a small chapel in northern Ethiopia. Solomon was not just an extraordinarily rich and wise king. He was the last guardian of a lineage that Sumerian texts call bearers of the nam-lugal, the divine kingship that descended from heaven, that the Egyptians called blood of Horus, that the Maya called the lineage of the gods, and that today, if the traditions are correct, still exists, in descendants scattered around the world, guarding something, waiting for something. This is the complete documentary of the secrets of Solomon. To understand Solomon's secrets, you first need to understand the man. And the man is more extraordinary than any Hollywood film has managed to show. The context: Solomon inherited a kingdom his father David had unified by force. Israel had been for centuries a confederation of tribes, united by religion, but not by a solid political structure. David created that structure, built Jerusalem as capital, defeated the Philistines, but his reign was marked by war and by his own fallible humanity, the affair with Bathsheba, the murder of Uriah. The family wars. Solomon inherited a kingdom that needed peace, and he made peace his most powerful weapon: the wealth, the gold. Solomon accumulated is described in the texts with numbers that defy the imagination. 666 talents of gold per year, just from trade routes, plus what came from vassal kings and governors, plus the gold of Ofir, a mysterious location that nobody has identified with certainty to this day. Archaeologists and historians who tried to calculate Solomon's wealth in modern values arrived at estimates between 1.8 and $2.2 trillion. The Temple. The construction that defined Solomon's reign was the Temple in Jerusalem. 7 years of construction. Using cedars from Lebanon, negotiated with Hiram, king of Tyre. Using stone cut with such precision that the texts say no sound of hammer or chisel was heard during the construction, and using gold in unimaginable quantities. The interior of the Holy of Holies, where the Ark would be placed, was lined with pure gold. The floor, the walls, the ceiling, all gold. When the temple was consecrated, the texts describe a cloud of glory filling it, a physical presence, tangible. That made the priest step back. The wisdom. The Bible says God appeared to Solomon in a dream and offered him anything he asked. Solomon asked for wisdom, not wealth, not power, not victory over enemies, wisdom to govern his people well. And God, according to the texts, was so impressed by this choice that he gave Solomon also everything he hadn't asked for. Solomon's wisdom became legendary. Kings from around the world made long journeys just to hear his judgments. The famous judgment of Solomon, in which he ordered a child to be cut in half to discover the true mother, is one of the most cited examples of lateral thinking in history. But Solomon's wisdom was also, according to the texts, spiritual in nature. He knew the language of animals. He had power over the jinn, the spirits. The Ring of Solomon, according to Islamic and Jewish traditions, was a seal that gave him power over supernatural forces. Where did this knowledge come from? Orthodox tradition says it was a gift from God. The alternative tradition says it was inherited. From a lineage that carried accumulated wisdom across generations. A lineage that began long before David, long before Abraham. That stretched back to ancestors the texts called patriarchs, with lives of hundreds of years: Enoch, Methuselah, Noah, and before them, the Nephilim, the sons of God, with the daughters of men, the lineage that carried different blood. The Ring of Solomon and the Jinn. Islamic texts, especially Hadith traditions and Sufi texts, describe the Ring of Solomon in more detail than any Jewish or Christian tradition. It was a ring with a pentagram, or hexagram, depending on the source, engraved on it, with the name of God inscribed. That gave Solomon power over the jinn, spirits that Islamic texts describe as beings of fire existing in a dimension parallel to the human. Solomon used the jinn to build the temple. The stone that no hammer could cut during construction was cut by a special jinn called Shamir, a supernatural being that could cut stone without making sound. This tradition is extraordinary because it is consistent with what Sumerian texts say about the Anunnaki helping the kings who carried the nam-lugal build impossible works, the sons of the gods who helped their human descendants build what no human technology should have been able to build, the same pattern, in traditions separated by 1,000 years. Solomon's temple was not just a religious building, it was a declaration that Israel had access to something that other kingdoms did not. And when we look at the technical descriptions of the temple, what we find is disturbing. The specifications. The first book of Kings describes the temple with architect's precision: 60 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, 30 cubits tall. The Holy of Holies, the inner chamber where the ark would rest, was a perfect cube. 20 cubits in all dimensions, a cube of pure gold. Gold walls, gold floor, gold ceiling. The stone without sound. The texts say something extraordinary about the construction. When the temple was being built, it was built with finished stones directly from the quarry. No hammers, chisels, or any iron tools were heard in the house while it was being built. Stone cut with enough precision to assemble without adjustment on site, without the sound of tools during construction. This is technically extraordinary. To cut stone with this precision without making sound, you need a cutting method that is not percussion. Today we use diamond wire saws, cutting lasers, high-pressure abrasives. In 950 BC, how? Islamic texts answer with Shamir, the jinn who cut stone. Jewish texts speak of a worm called Shamir that cut stone, a being or a tool that cut hard rock without impact, silently, with precision. It sounds like mythology, but the cut stone exists. The silence during construction is documented. Something cut that stone in a way we don't understand. The number 666, there is a detail in the texts about Solomon that is rarely discussed. The weight of gold that arrived to Solomon per year, 6666 talents. In later Christian apocalyptic texts, 6666 is the number of the Antichrist. Coincidence? Probably. But it is curious that the same number associated with the wisest and richest king in history is also the number associated with the maximum symbol of evil in subsequent Christian tradition. Unless both refer to something more specific, a quantity of gold, a delivery cycle, a calculation that made sense in an accounting system we no longer understand. The destruction. In 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar the Second of Babylon destroyed Jerusalem. He burned the temple. He took the people into exile, and he looted everything: gold and silver vessels, bronze columns, cauldrons, bathtubs. A detailed list of the spoils is preserved in the second book of Kings. The ark is not on that list. It is never mentioned in biblical texts after the reign of Josiah, several decades before the destruction, as if it was no longer there when the Babylonians arrived, as if someone knew the invasion was coming and had acted in advance. The Second Temple. When the exiles returned from Babylon, they rebuilt the temple. The Second Temple was consecrated in 516 BC. It was smaller, less glorious, without the same gold, and most importantly, without the Ark. The Holy of Holies of the Second Temple was empty. The priests served in a space that was built to contain something that was no longer there. They performed rituals around an absence, like guarding an empty reliquary, knowing that what should be there was somewhere else, in Axum, or beneath the Temple Mount, or somewhere we haven't found yet. Let's talk about something Sunday sermons rarely address: 1,000 wives. The Bible says this literally about Solomon, and for centuries, religious commentators treated this as the great weakness of the wisest king, his sin, his apostasy. But if you look with a historian's eyes and not a preacher's, you'll see something else entirely. The diplomatic machine. Each princess entering Solomon's harem represented a treaty. The Phoenician princess from Tyre, access to Lebanese timber for the temple and Mediterranean maritime trade. The Moabite and Ammonite princesses, security of the eastern borders and control of Arabian caravan routes. The Edomite princesses, access to the port of Elath on the Red Sea and to the routes leading to the gold of Ofir. The Egyptian princesses, the most extraordinary alliance of all. The Pharaoh's daughter. Egypt had an absolute rule that had lasted 1,000 years. No Pharaoh's daughter married a foreign king. The Pharaoh was the son of Ra. His daughters were divine. Giving them in marriage meant admitting equality with inferior kingdoms. There are letters from the 14th century BC where foreign kings asked for a pharaoh's daughter. The Egyptian response was invariably the same: never. Since ancient times, no daughter of the king of Egypt has been given to anyone. And yet, Solomon received an Egyptian princess, with the city of Gaza as dowry. A city the Egyptians had conquered, burned, and delivered rebuilt as a wedding gift. Egypt gave a city to Israel. That had never happened. What made Solomon different from every other foreign king who asked for a pharaoh's daughter and was refused? The answer may lie in the lineage. Solomon was not just a powerful king. He was the bearer of a lineage coming from Abraham, who in turn descended from Noah, who in turn descended from Adam. If the Egyptians recognized that this lineage had special status, a status that transcended normal politics, then giving a daughter to Solomon was not humiliation. It was alliance with something greater. The price. But the harem had a price that the biblical texts describe without sugarcoating. Each princess brought her religion, and Solomon, to please his wives, built temples for their gods: Chemosh of the Moabites, Moloch of the Ammonites, Astarte of the Phoenicians. On the Mount of Olives, in sight of the temple of the one God, Solomon erected altars for foreign deities. The prophets never forgave him, and when he died, his son inherited a kingdom divided from within. That split definitively shortly after. Among all of Solomon's 1,000 women, there was one who was different, who was not brought as a political alliance, who came by choice from a distant kingdom, with gold and spices, and with questions no other king could answer: the Queen of Sheba. The biblical version, the Bible dedicates only 13 verses to this story. The queen came. She asked difficult questions. Solomon answered them all. She was impressed. They exchanged gifts, and she left. No mention of romance, no son, no ark. The Ethiopian version, the Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's sacred book, tells a completely different story. Queen Makeda arrived in Jerusalem and spent months learning from Solomon. And when she wanted to leave, Solomon organized a farewell banquet with intense spices, and then invited her to spend the night at the palace. With an agreement, he would not touch her, and she would not take anything belonging to him. In the middle of the night, the thirst from the spices was unbearable. She drank water. Solomon appeared and demanded the equivalent. The tradition may seem harsh to modern eyes, but in the context of the ancient world, it was a diplomatic stratagem, a way to create a blood bond between two kingdoms. Makeda returned to Ethiopia pregnant, and the son she bore, Menelik, changed the course of the Horn of Africa's history. Menelik and the Ark. When Menelik grew up, he went to Jerusalem to meet his father. Solomon wanted him to stay, to reign over Israel. But Menelik chose Ethiopia, and when he departed, according to the Kebra Nagast, the sons of the priests who accompanied him took the Ark of the Covenant, without Menelik initially knowing. When he discovered, he wanted to return it. But Ethiopian tradition says God approved the transfer. The Ethiopian people, who kept Moses' laws with more faithfulness than Israel, were the new guardians. The lineage. Menelik became the first king of the Solomonic lineage of Ethiopia, a lineage that ruled, with some interruptions, for 3,000 years. The last of the lineage was Hale Salassie, Emperor of Ethiopia until 1974, who used the title Lion of Judah, elect of God, King of Kings of Ethiopia, and who claimed to be the 225th direct descendant of Solomon and Makeda. When he died, a 3,000-year lineage came to its end, or at least to the end of political power. The descendants still exist, and the tradition they keep, including the Ark, continues. The Anunnaki connection. There is something no religious commentator mentions, but that anyone studying ancient traditions notices immediately. The pattern of Solomon and Makeda is identical to the pattern that Sumerian texts describe between the Anunnaki and human women. The sons of God who united with the daughters of men, creating a hybrid lineage. In Solomon's case, a man carrying the blood of a special lineage uniting with a queen of a people that Ethiopian texts describe as keeping very ancient knowledge. And the fruit of that union, Menelik, became the guardian of the most sacred object in the ancient world, the Ark, which may not be just a wooden chest covered in gold, but something technological, something that required guardians with specific characteristics to be handled safely. Just as the Anunnaki created humans with specific characteristics to work with materials that other humans could not touch. The pattern repeats, in traditions separated by millennia and by continents, as if there were an underlying logic, a logic we still don't fully understand. The Ark of the Covenant is the most mysterious object in human history, not just because of its unknown location, but because of what the texts say it did, and what modern physicists say it could be. The technical description: the Book of Exodus describes the Ark with engineers' specifications. A box 1.10 meters by 0.66 meters by 0.66 meters. Acacia wood covered in pure gold, inside and out. 2 different metals separated by an insulator, with a pure gold mercy seat on top, with 2 cherubim with outstretched wings, 1 at each end, and non-conducting wooden poles for transport. This is not the description of a vague, sacred object. It is a technical specification, with exact dimensions, with specific materials, with precise handling instructions. Someone knew exactly what they were describing: the power of the Ark. Biblical texts describe the Ark's effects with disturbing consistency. The walls of Jericho fell after the Israelites marched around them with the Ark for 7 days. When the Philistines captured the Ark, it was a catastrophe for them. The statue of their god Dagon fell and broke. Plagues devastated the cities where they kept it. They quickly returned it. When Uzzah tried to stabilize the Ark on a cart and touched it, he died immediately. In a single day, the texts say 50,070 men of Beth Shemesh died for looking inside the open Ark. These are not vague events. They are described with specificity, with numbers, with names, with identifiable locations. What physicists say? Several physicists and engineers, beginning with Nikola Tesla in the 19th century and continuing to contemporary researchers, noted that this description corresponds to an electrical capacitor. 2 conductors, inner gold and outer gold, separated by an insulator, acacia wood. The climatic conditions of the Sinai Desert, extremely dry air, constant wind, sudden temperature variations, are ideal for charging a capacitor. Under such conditions, the potential difference between the 2 gold conductors could accumulate voltages of several thousand volts. The wooden poles for transport, non-conducting material, are exactly what you would use to move an electrically charged object without being electrocuted. The effects the Ark had on whoever touched it without protection: high-voltage electrical discharge. Uzzah's death upon touching the Ark, consistent with cardiac arrest from high-voltage electrocution. The 50,070 men of Beth Shemesh, possible Ark discharge in an enclosed space where the Ark was opened. And the mercy seat with the cherubim of outstretched wings, a geometry that would create a specific, focused electrical field in the space between the wings. The place where God spoke, a high-intensity electromagnetic field producing specific sounds, visions and neurological effects on whoever was in that exact space with the right level of protection. The walls of Jericho question: if the Ark was a high-voltage capacitor, the fall of Jericho's walls becomes less impossible. Specific sound frequencies, generated by an oscillating electrical field, can cause resonance in physical structures. Acoustic researchers have documented that frequencies in the 18 to 19 Hz range, infrasound, below the human hearing threshold, can cause vibration in stone and dry clay structures. 7 days of marching with wind instruments and the Ark, generating oscillating electromagnetic fields around walls of dried adobe. Improbable, but not impossible. But there is something even more disturbing. If the Ark was technology, who designed it? The specifications were given to Moses on Mount Sinai, by God, according to Orthodox tradition, or by beings who understood advanced physics, according to the alternative interpretation. The same beings that Sumerian texts describe as having given specific technology to their human descendants. The same ones that Egyptian texts describe as having taught the priests of Karnak knowledge they preserved without fully understanding. The same ones that appear in all ancient traditions as bearers of knowledge that common humanity did not possess, and who transmitted that knowledge selectively to those prepared to keep it. Moses spent 40 days on Mount Sinai, 40 days receiving instructions, not just the 10 Commandments, the complete specifications of the tabernacle, the altar, the priestly garments, and the Ark. A complete technical manual for building and operating a device whose real purpose may have been far more than containing stone tablets. In 2008, the Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church announced he was going to show the Ark to the world. He cancelled at the last moment without explanation. Why announce and then cancel? The only explanation that makes sense is that there was something that could not be shown, something that, if seen, would raise questions that nobody was prepared to answer. The chapel in Axum exists. The Guardian exists. The prohibition on entering is real. 3,000 years of uninterrupted guardianship that only makes sense if what is inside is real. There is a line that goes from Solomon to the Templars, and from the Templars to Portugal, and from Portugal to Ethiopia. A line that few historians have traced completely. The Templars, founded in 1119, 2 decades after the First Crusade. Their original headquarters, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. For 10 years, the first 9 Templars were essentially militarily inactive. They weren't protecting pilgrims. They weren't running campaigns. They were excavating beneath the ruins of what would have been Solomon's temple. In 1129, they returned to Europe, and in a few years became the richest and most powerful order in Europe. They founded the first international banking system. They built Gothic cathedrals, with architecture incorporating symbolism academics still debate. And they developed secret rituals that 2 centuries later led to their violent extinction. What they found, we don't. Tazu. But the transformation was so rapid and total that something extraordinary must have happened in those 10 years of excavation. Documents, relics, a map, or something that confirmed where the Ark was. The suppression. In 1307, King Philip of France ordered the arrest of all Templars. Accused of heresy, devil worship, obscene practices. In 1312, Pope Clement V suppressed the order. In 1314, the last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was burned in Paris. Before dying, he cursed the king and the Pope. Both died within less than a year.
Signifying our
Portugal,
shared pursuit
the
of
exception.
knowledge.
In Portugal,
We accept
the
with
order
honor.
was not suppressed. It was reconverted. The Portuguese Templars became the Knights of Christ, with the same structure, the same resources, the same members, and the same knowledge. In 1418, Prince Henry the Navigator, Grand Master of the Knights of Christ, initiated systematic explorations of the African coast. The caravels exploring Africa's coast used the Templar cross as their insignia. They reached Ethiopia. They established contact with Ethiopian emperors, whom texts of the era called Prester John. The question nobody asks: why was Portugal so obsessed with Ethiopia? Commercially, there were more lucrative and accessible spice routes. The Portuguese obsession with Prester John, the legendary Christian king of East Africa, was one of the driving forces of the Age of Discovery. But Prester John was an Ethiopian emperor who ruled from Axum, the same city where the Ark is supposedly kept, the same city where Solomon's lineage held the throne. Coincidence? Or were the heirs of Templar knowledge searching for what their predecessors had found traces of in Jerusalem? The answer was lost to history, but the line exists, from Solomon to the Ark, from the Ark to Menelik, from Menelik to Axum, from Axum to the Templars, from the Templars to Portugal, and from Portugal back to Axum, a 3,000-year circle. That may not be closed.
Welcome, traveler.
There is a mystery surrounding Solomon that was practically overlooked.
Yes,
the gold of
but
Ofir.
the journey was worth it.
What the texts say, biblical texts repeatedly mention Ofir as the source of Solomon's gold. Solomon's fleet, built at the port of Elath on the Red Sea with Phoenician help from Hiram of Tyre, departed for Ofir and returned with gold. 420 talents on one voyage, then 666 talents per year. In modern values, hundreds of millions of dollars per expedition. The voyage lasted 3 years, there and back. 3 years. Where was Ofir? This is one of the great unsolved questions of biblical archaeology. No academic has identified Ofir with certainty. The most serious candidates, Yemen, Southern Arabia, geographically close and historically gold-rich. But a 3-year voyage is too long for Yemen. East Africa, Somalia, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Great Zimbabwe, a monumental stone city in Africa's interior, has been identified by some researchers as Ofir. There are ancient gold mines in the region. India, the port of Sopara near Mumbai, was called Ofir in ancient texts, and a voyage to India would indeed take about 3 years under the conditions of the era. Indonesia, Malaysia, where gold and spices were abundant, and where the 3-year voyage would make geographical sense. What archaeology found? In 1946, archaeologists found a stone at excavations in Tel Kassil, near Tel Aviv, with a Phoenician inscription that read, "Gold of Ofir for Beth Horon, 30 shekels." It is the only extra-biblical mention of Ofir ever found. It confirms Ofir existed. That gold came from there. But it doesn't say where it was. The African theory and the Anunnaki. If Ofir was in Africa, specifically in the region of modern Zimbabwe or Mozambique, there is an extraordinary connection with the Anunnaki narrative. Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki mining gold in sub-Saharan Africa. Enki and his servants, in the region the texts describe as Abzu, which many researchers identify with southern Africa. The oldest known mines in the world, Lion Mine in Eswatini, have been dated to 43,000 years, long before any known civilization. Who was mining in them? And if the gold of Ofir came from the same regions where the Anunnaki mined, did Solomon know the origin of the gold? Did he know where it came from and why it had special value? The gold that lined the Holy of Holies, where the Ark rested, was it the same gold the Anunnaki processed to protect Nibiru's atmosphere? There is a logic in this sequence that is disturbing, and that connects Solomon to the broader Anunnaki narrative in a way no conventional theologian has dared to say. There is a place in the world where Solomon's story converges with the present in an explosive way. The Temple Mount in Jerusalem. What's there? Today, on the site where Solomon's temple stood, 2 Islamic structures rise. The Dome of the Rock, built in 691 AD, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, built in 705 AD. They are Islam's 3rd holiest site, and they stand on Judaism's holiest site. This overlap, one sacred monument over another, is the root of one of the world's most intractable conflicts. What's underneath? In 1867, Lieutenant Charles Warren conducted excavations beneath the Temple Mount with Ottoman authorization. He found an elaborate system of chambers, tunnels, and passages, some with markings suggesting pre-Islamic construction, possibly from the Herodian era or earlier. His report was published by the Palestine Exploration Society, and access was closed. Nobody has since conducted an extensive scientific archaeological excavation beneath the Temple Mount. Why not? The Islamic authorities administering the Temple Mount, the Jordanian Waqf, prohibit any excavation. The Israeli authorities, by agreement after Jerusalem's reunification in 1967, handed administration of the Mount to the Waqf. Any excavation would be a politically explosive act, and religiously and politically unacceptable to the Islamic world. What researchers suspect? There are chambers beneath the Temple Mount that have never been opened with modern scientific equipment. In 1981, an Israeli team accidentally opened a tunnel during renovation works in the Muslim quarter. They found what appeared to be sealed chambers. There were physical confrontations. The tunnel was quickly sealed again. Nobody disclosed what was inside. The question politics won't let be answered. If the Templars excavated here for 10 years, if Lieutenant Warren found elaborate structures, if chambers were accidentally discovered in 1981, what is beneath the Temple Mount? Biblical texts mention secret passages, chambers where sacred objects were kept. Did Jeremiah hide relics before the Babylonian invasion? Did priests preserve documents, the original scriptures, the genealogies, the temple records? Or is there something there that we don't even know should be there? Solomon, the wisest king in history, is king in, built the temple with jinn knowledge, with specifications coming from a source that transcended common humanity. Would he have built only what we see above the rock, or also what lies beneath? The answer, if it exists, is in a place that politics and religion prevent from being explored. For now. There is something that unites all the themes of this documentary. The harem, the Queen of Sheba, the Ark, the Templars. It is the lineage. What the texts say. Biblical texts are clear. The lineage of David and Solomon was special. God made a covenant with David. His lineage would rule forever. Your house and your kingdom will endure forever before me. Your throne will be established forever. The covenant was not with Israel as a people. It was with David's specific lineage. And that lineage continued, even when Israel was destroyed, even when the temple burned, even when the people were taken into exile. David's lineage survived in Judah, in Babylon, in Persia, in Alexandria, and stand according to the Kebra Nagast in Ethiopia. Hale Salassie, the last guardian. Hale Salassie was born in 1892 as Tafari Makonnen. He was the grandson of an Ethiopian governor who claimed to descend directly from Solomon and Makeda. He ascended to the throne in 1930 as Emperor of Ethiopia and adopted the full title that the Solomonic lineage had always used. Lion of Judah, elect of God, King of Kings of Ethiopia. Each part of this title is significant. Lion of Judah, the tribe of Solomon, of David, of Jesus himself in Christian tradition. Elect of God, not just a political ruler, intermediary between the divine and the human. King of Kings, the title Ethiopian emperors had claimed since Menelik. Haile Selassie ruled Ethiopia for 44 years, and during that time, he became something more than a head of state. For the Rastafari movement, born in Jamaica in the 1930s, Haile Selassie was literally the Messiah, the promised return of the divine lineage, the Lion of Judah that the scriptures announced. Millions of people around the world believed he was the embodiment of the fulfillment of a 3,000-year-old prophecy. He never confirmed this belief, but he never completely denied it either, as if he knew something he could not say directly. In 1974, a Marxist military junta called the Derg deposed Haile Selassie. In 1975, he died in circumstances never fully clarified, officially from surgical complications. Many historians suspect assassination. With him, the Solomonic lineage on the Ethiopian throne ended. 3,000 years of uninterrupted continuity, ended by generals who believed history was just politics and economics, without understanding what they were ending, or perhaps understanding and doing it deliberately. The nam-lugal and Solomon's lineage. Sumerian texts speak of the nam-lugal, the divine kingship. It descended from heaven, was given to specific cities. Passed from one to another, it was transmitted, not conquered. The king who carried the nam-lugal was not just a political ruler, he was the intermediary between the divine and the human, the bridge between the Anunnaki and the peoples they created and taught. Solomon was the bearer of the nam-lugal of Israel's lineage, and when he died, when the kingdom divided, when Babylon destroyed Jerusalem, the nam-lugal did not disappear. It transferred. To where? Ethiopian tradition says, to Menelik, to Aksum, to the Solomonic lineage of Ethiopia. And that lineage ruled with all the authority of the nam-lugal until 1974, when it was interrupted by force. But the nam-lugal cannot be destroyed by force. According to Sumerian texts, it only transfers. Where did it transfer in 1974? We do not know. But Hale Salassie's descendants still live, and the tradition they carry, even without a throne, even without power, is the longest documented royal lineage in human history. The descendants today, the imperial house of Ethiopia, the Solomonid family, still exists, scattered around the world. In the United States, in Europe, in Ethiopia, Prince Hale Salassie, grandson of Hale Salassie, lives in the United States. He continues to represent the Ethiopian imperial house. He continues to claim the lineage that begins with Solomon, and continues to keep the tradition that was transmitted generation by generation for 3,000 years. Not as political power, as memory, as identity, as the awareness that there is a thread connecting the present to something much older, a thread that politics can temporarily cut. But that time, according to the traditions that preserved it, always finds a way to reconnect. What remains of Solomon? Not the temple. It was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The second temple, built after the exile, was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. Where the temple stood, today stands the esplanade of the mosques with the Dome of the Rock, one of the world's most disputed sites, not the kingdom. It divided after his death, was conquered, dispersed. What remained? The texts, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs, a wisdom still cited today. That still inspires, that still challenges. The tradition, the Kebra Nagast, the Ethiopian Jews, the lineage that perpetuated itself. The awareness that there was a moment, brief in the scale of history, when a small kingdom, in that narrow strip of land between the Mediterranean and the desert, touched something that transcended politics and economics, something spiritual or technological, or both. The Ark. The question archaeologists don't ask. There is an excavation that has never been done. Beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the holiest site for Jews and Muslims, the third holiest for Christians. An extensive archaeological excavation there would be politically impossible, but if it were possible, what would they find? In 1867, Lieutenant Charles Warren tunneled beneath the Temple Mount with Ottoman authorization. He found chambers, passages, spaces that appeared on no map. His report was published, and then access was closed forever. Nobody has since entered those chambers with scientific research equipment. What is beneath the Temple Mount? Empty chambers, relics, documents, or nothing? Because what was there was taken. By Menelik, or by the Templars, or by someone we haven't yet identified.
Just ahead.
The circle. Solomon's secrets form a circle. They begin with the richest and wisest king in history. Pass through the queen who came from far away and left a son who carried the world's most sacred object to Africa. Pass through the Templars who excavated in Jerusalem and returned transformed. Pass through Portugal that followed the trails to the Horn of Africa. And end, or don't end, in a small chapel in Axum, where a man guards something that he promised to guard until death. And when he dies, another will take his place. As always, as it has been since the beginning, guarding what the knowledge bearers left. For when they return, subscribe, the story doesn't end here. The story